Hey, Em. How are you doing, girl? Are you back in there? Uh, uh, all right. So, good morning. It is September 22nd, and it is Saturday. And yesterday I went to Santa Barbara and I went to Yoga Soup and played some communication games with a group of friends and had a really enjoyable time. I did that last night, and afterwards, I walked down State Street to do some street photography. I brought my camera and I snapped some photographs in the evening on State Street on a Friday night. And I took some photographs of, I guess, some people and some buildings and some landscapes. I took some photographs of the sky, the moon, and the stars. And it was interesting to see how the camera did in lighting conditions that were nighttime. I've been beginning to think that we may have two real strong interests. Number one, photography, and number two, music. I think those are two shared interests that we have, and you know, maybe it would be interesting to explore those interests. Maybe there are ways that we can support each other in exploring those things that we're passionate about. I was reflecting recently on just how much you enjoy listening to music, and we could go and go to a few concerts that are local. We could even go to concerts in Los Angeles. We could go to concerts of all types. We can go to orchestras that play classical music. There are a lot of them, even locally and in Santa Barbara, even San Luis Obispo, and lots of opportunities to listen to live music in the area. And that might be fun. I know Nora Jones is coming to the Santa Barbara Bowl probably later this month, and that would be an interesting concert. You and your mom could come along too, and even your stepdad could come along too. That would definitely be okay with me. So there's a lot of opportunities out there where we could share some time together and visit a while. Yeah. So yeah, I'm experimenting with my camera, and I'm gonna try to take some photographs today. Today I'm driving up to Pismo Beach, and I will be participating in a positivity parade. That's right. It's a group of people who get together on the street, and they've got poster board signs, and they march down the street, and the intent is to help make people's days a little more enjoyable, help make them a little happier in the moment when they see us walk by with encouraging signs of support and good intention and goodwill. And there's no other intention besides making people happy. No other intention than that. And so I'm looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to getting together with that group of people. I did the same thing last year, and so I get to visit with them again, and maybe perhaps meet new people, and that'll be exciting too. Looking forward to that. That's happening around noon today. One other thought I considered was the possibility of us seeing a movie together. Yeah, there are some really good movies coming out this season. By the way, today is the 21st of September. Oh no, it's the 22nd of September, and it's the autumnal equinox. So we are in the fall season right now, in full swing. And we've got Halloween coming up, and Thanksgiving, and then Christmas after that. And so This is part of the season where there's a lot going on. There's all kinds of parties and festivals, and I'm going to be attending a lot of them, or trying to attend as many as I can, while still doing well in work and in school. And so it's a pretty exciting time. There's a lot of fun autumnal themes that I'm interested in playing with decorations and costume and even music, and really excited by all that potential that's coming up in the future. And I'm excited about participating in it and sort of creative endeavors related to that. All right, so first thing I want to do is let's get into Peaceful Living, the book by Mary McKenzie. And let's see what Mary McKenzie has to say for today. I'm curious about what quote she's got for us. So the quote for September 22nd is this: "If we could read the secret history of our enemies, we should find in each man's life sorrow and suffering enough to disarm all hostility." By Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Yeah. What this quote means to me is just a recognition that everyone's behavior on some level is understandable. It's understandable based on what their behavior is understandable based on what they know, what their history is, what kind of personality they have. It's understandable because people are basically all the same. We've all been conditioned by our environment. We've essentially got the same genetic code. And we have nervous systems that are equally responsive, unless there's a defect of some kind. And these nervous systems, they only know what they're taught, right? And what they're taught exists in a person's history. And, that learning that people are taught, it's finite. And, depending on a person's level of awareness, they will learn from those situations and that history only what they can learn. And they just don't learn what they don't learn. It's just the way of the world. And given that, essentially everyone's behavior is understandable on that level. And, and it goes down to, when I say everyone's behavior, I mean everyone's behavior relating to their mental acts of thought and their physical acts where they take action. And so what that means for me, that's a really encouraging understanding. It's encouraging because of its explanatory power, namely, and also because of the compassion that particular view entails. In fact, it's almost like clockwork. The human body, as it relates to its environment over time, in a way is very fixed. It's sort of a clockwork mechanism. And so people respond according to, how they've been conditioned over time. And there's nothing you can do to change that. It's sort of a fixed quantity. Yeah, people do have the ability to make decisions, more or less. But those decisions are based on the results of prior decisions. And those prior decisions are based on the results of even still prior decisions than those. And, our behavior today, and even my behavior today, is nothing more than the accumulation of decisions in the past. And that's all. So if a person has expectations for another person's behavior, those expectations must be or better be consistent with that person's conditioned past. Otherwise, they're setting themselves up for severe disappointment. That's right. Yeah, you can hope and wish all you want, but a person's unfolding of behavior and thoughts will be according to that person's conditioned history. So what I really like about that perspective is that it makes everything understandable and fixed, and and I really do have feelings for people. I do get compassion, a sense of compassion and understanding of others, even when they act in ways that I don't quite anticipate. So anyway, that's what that quote means to me. Let me read it one more time. If we could read the secret history of our enemies, we should find in each man's life sorrow and suffering enough to disarm all hostility. By Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Yeah, this hostility that Longfellow talks about, this is these are internal judgments, right? About where we judge other people for their behavior. It's like we have sometimes an expectation about how they ought to act, how they should act, how they must act, how they need to act, how even we want them to act. And, that expectation, it comes from a different place. It's not necessarily related to the other person's behavior. These are expectations in our own mind. And we make assumptions, right? Oh, this person is probably like this and probably like that. And so we expect behavior to go along these lines. And if they don't behave that way, say they don't behave in a just or fair manner or whatever, we get surprised and disappointed, right? And it just might not be justifiable. It's not. It's clearly not justifiable. People act the way they act. And they act the way they act every time, all the time. And they're not going to act any different from their conditioning, what they've learned from their experience in the past, or what you teach them in the present. Their future behavior is fixed, And so what does that mean for our hostility, right? Our judgment about that behavior. Well, that judgment, in my mind, dissolves. It can only dissolve. I think the problem when we make a judgment about another person's behavior, there's a basic non-acceptance. It's just a basic non-acceptance about their behavior. It's like reality is the way it is, and I don't like it. And I'm going to be at war with reality in the moment. Because I choose to be at war in the moment. That's what this judgment is. It's a recognition of being against or unaccepting of the current reality. And let me tell you something about judgments, is that they are incredibly painful. A judgment exists when, your current reality is different than your ideal reality, right? There's a contrast. There's a disconnection. There's a dissimilarity. There's a discrepancy between what we got and what we want. And that discrepancy causes a lot of emotional pain. That difference causes a lot of emotional pain. And when we focus on that difference, on that judgment, it can create a lot of pain. It could be, it And you know what's kind of funny? It's what I call a non-acceptance. There is a way to think about the world in an accepting way. It's possible to think about the world in an accepting way. And to be content with the world as it is. Not simply to be content, but even to love the world as it is. It is possible. And that is the opposite of judgment. Right? Now, there's a couple kinds of judgment. There's like what I'd call moral judgment, which is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about moral judgment. There's another kind of judgment that is just sort of like a thinking, logical type judgment where we categorize behavior. We put behavior in certain boxes to understand it, apply certain generalizations and concepts to it so that we can think about a certain situation. That's just like what I'd call like a cognitive judgment. It's just sort of, it's an academic judgment, right? Where we're just trying to understand the world and trying to apply concepts to it and work it out logically. That academic judgment is entirely appropriate, okay? It's fine to sort of make generalizations to understand what's going on. That's how our brain works, right? We have a conceptual mind. Concepts are basically just putting, sort of categorizing the world around us and understanding it. That kind of judgment is perfectly acceptable all the time. It also has a fairly neutral outcome. It's essentially the scientific process, right? The scientific method is perfectly okay. That kind of academic conceptual judgment is essential to how human beings think. But there's another kind of judgment. It's called moral judgment. This is the judgment I'm talking about. The judgment where we're not accepting about the world the way it is. And we also lose contentment in the process. We lose peace. There's quite a lot that we lose when we engage in moral judgment. Now, we can gain a lot of things from moral judgment too. The anger, the sadness can drive us to take action about a situation. And that is often quite helpful if that action is constructive, right? That is constructive according to our values, right? And so anyway, I've gotten a lot of mileage out of that quote. Anyway, it connects to something that's really important to me, and that is the nature of judgment and the nature of acceptance, which I think is, an understanding of this is really the root of all trouble in the world. Pretty much all trouble in the world. And, that goes towards or is related to this idea that I've mentioned in the past before, having to do with, what life is all about. Life is all about how you respond to a negative thought. That's what life is all about. It's, what approach you take toward the thoughts that are negative that you're confronted with. And that's really what life is all about. If you can figure out how to strategically maneuver around and through negative thinking, you're set. There's nothing that life can hand you that you'll struggle with. If you've got that strategy about how you'll respond to a negative thought down, right? Yeah. Okay, so let's move on. So what does Mary Mackenzie have to say about this quote? I'm curious. Let's find out. So her passage has the subtitle, Connecting to Our Humanity. Human beings are basically the same, she says. We all have the same needs for love, support, food, water, appreciation, and caring for our families. We all suffer. We all laugh. We all feel joy. We all feel sorrow. We all bleed and we grieve when our loved ones are injured or are in pain. We feel scared if we are in danger and hopeless when we can't find ways to live safely. If you are in conflict with someone, try to forget your differences. Connect to your similarities, your universal needs, and the humanity that you share with that person. When we connect to the humanity in other people, we can eliminate violence. And so the reminder for the day is, be aware of the humanity you share with other people today. Yeah. So I really like this idea of focusing on the similarities. Yeah. When we're negotiating with another person, finding common ground is really important to resolving the conflict. Why? Because that common ground helps you recognize how you are in partnership with the other person, how you are working together, and it helps sort of identify the goodwill between each other, between you and your opponent. How really how essential, you also get to identify how essential it is that you are working in cooperation with another person, that you are working shoulder to shoulder with them to solve this problem. Because solving the problem will meet joint interests, will meet joint needs. And it also opens the door to making an agreement where both people benefit. And so seeking that common ground, finding that common ground is essential. And it's entirely essential, especially essential for you to find that common ground with people who you judge, people who you are judging, so that you can understand where they're coming from, where you can understand their world. And if you can do that, essentially the negotiation is complete. It becomes easy to figure out a way around. At least probably 80% easier if you could find that common ground with the other person. If you can recognize that you share the same needs, and you can maybe perhaps identify certain values that you each share. If you each share the value of evidence, then that can go a long way toward solving a problem. If you each share the value of love and friendship, then you can maintain a relationship, even if you disagree. So, anyway, good stuff today. Yeah. All right. So what I'm going to do now is let's lighten up the conversation a little bit with My Big Fat Zombie Goldfish. Okay. So this is a book by Mo O'Hara that I've been reading lately. And if you recall, let's see, we're on chapter 7 now. Now, there's this zombie goldfish that was created when Tom put a 9-volt DC battery to a fish that was in polluted water because his brother Mark was playing evil scientist for a school project. And Tom took the fish out of the fishbowl to rescue him while Mark was out of the room. And now Tom's got to get the fish back into the fishbowl, which is a zombie fish now. And in order to do that, he needed to put the fish in cleaner water, but colored green with food coloring. And he got the food coloring from his friend Pradeep's home. But now Mark has found them. Mark has found them both, and he's sort of roughing them up a little bit because he's basically upset because he's lost his fish. He doesn't know where the fish is, and he's got his meddling brothers and brother's neighbor. So here we go. Chapter 7, a classic evil scientist trap. While my face was kissing the carpet, Mark pulled my arms back behind me and tied them together. Everything seemed a bit hazy after that, but he must have dragged me over to where Pradeep was sitting and put us back to back. He had piled up some comics and stuff next to us, and there was a shadow of something over our heads. The next thing I knew, he was tying us together with the belt from his white coat. A classic evil scientist move. Something dripped onto my face. It smelled disgusting. Pradeep, what is that? I asked as I wiped my chin on my shoulder.
Mark's mucky matter melons mover modes.
Pradeep mumbled. Remember, Pradeep's got tape over his mouth, put there by Mark the bully. I looked up to see the goldfish bowl sitting on a wobbly tray balanced between two towers of comic books. Water was sloshing out of the bowl with every little move we made. Mark's got the fishbowl filled to the top with the toxic gunky water balanced over our heads. I said, translating Pradeep's cupcake talk. "How do you do that, moron?" Mark interrupted. "No, shut up." "Don't tell me that. Tell me where the fish is." He leaned in so his face was right up against mine. I should have said something really cool like, "I guess they don't make evil scientists breath freshener then." But instead I just stared back at Mark, trying really hard to ignore the millipede feeling all over my body. Still, I didn't tell him where Frankie was. "Fine," Mark stood up. "Morons, prepare to be gunged." Then I heard a quiet voice say, "Swishy little fishy." Sammy was standing at the door of Mark's room with Frankie in the bag in her arms. His eyes were bright and green, and his tail was thrashing wildly. He was staring at Mark. Sammy was going, "Mega goldfish starry." Sammy was looking mega goldfish starry. Okay. So, if you recall, the goldfish hypnotized Sammy, which is Pradeep's daughter, or Pradeep's sister. "Little moron," Mark said. "Hey, she's staring up my nose and at the wall. It's freaking me out. Make her stop." "It's the fish," I said. "He's hypnotized her, and he can do it to you." Pradeep mumbled, Miss sister." "Yeah, sorry. I was going to tell you when." "Thwack." "You know," I said. Mark bent over to look more closely at the fish in the bag. Frankie's eyes glowed, and Mark was starting to look a bit goldfish starry himself, when he suddenly took a pair of protective science experiment goggles out of his evil scientist coat pocket and put them on. I had no idea evil scientists had so many accessories. "Like that's gonna work on me," he snorted. "Cool, the fish has come back with evil powers. He's not evil," I shouted. "Mimicals, mattery muck, must mav mim, mythical mowers," Pradeep said. "I guess the combination of toxic chemicals and the battery shock must have given him special powers, Pradeep." "Yes," I said. "Can you stop doing that?" Mark stomped his foot. "I already figured that out. I'm the evil scientist here, not your moron friend." "Does he have a white coat?" "No." "Is he even evil?" "No." "So shut it." That was the most words Mark had ever said to me in his entire life. Mark paced in front of us with his hands stuffed in the pockets of his coat for a minute. Then he stopped and looked at Frankie. "Okay, fish, now you're my zombie goldfish. Just think of all the people we can hypnotize." Frankie thrashed his tail, and suddenly Sammy lunged at Mark. She dropped the bag and tried to attack him. As much as a 3-year-old dressed in a mermaid suit flailing around can be called an attack. "Swishy little fishy," she squealed. Mark just picked Sammy up and wedged her bottom first into his Star Wars wastepaper basket. Her mermaid tail flapped helplessly against Chewbacca's face as she struggled to get free. But instead of screaming the house down, she just stared the fishy stare. Wow, Sammy was really zombied out. "You need better minions, fish," Mark told me as he picked up the bag from the floor. "Now, let's see if we can make the whole school into fish zombies." "You won't get away with it, Mark," I said, pulling at the white belt, tying Pradeep and me together. "You may be an evil scientist, but you're still only 12. Mom will be home soon, and she won't let you hypnotize the school or toxic gunge us or take Frankie anywhere." Just at that moment, Mark's phone rang. Whoa. Hi, Mom. No, Tom's fine. He's playing with his moron friend and his moron sister. Mark stopped to listen. Okay, his little friend and his little sister. No, you stay and have coffee with your friend. Then he paused again. Oh no, sorry, Tom, can't come to the phone right now. He and Pradeep are kinda tied up. Mark covered the phone with his hand. Mwahaha, he laughed. Mark was getting way too comfortable with his new evil laugh thing. Then he spoke again. I'm fine. I'm just finishing my science homework. Okay. So, wow. It looks like Pradeep and Tom are in trouble. Mark is sort of playing defense with their mom and just saying that he's finishing up homework when he's really making plans to hypnotize his whole school with a zombie goldfish stare. So, all right. Good stuff. Whew. Oh, man. Gotta stretch. Gotta stretch. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm really happy today's Saturday. It was a pretty hectic week. And I'm thankful to have a little bit of downtime to do my laundry and put things together. I've got a guest coming over next weekend, so I really need to clean my home right now. I need to do my laundry and do some housework, wash the dishes, vacuum the floor, clean the bathroom, things like that. So, I'm looking forward to having some spare time to do that. I also have a midterm exam coming up in my machining class. Looking forward to studying for that. I've got about five chapters to read, at least 5 chapters to read about how to use a lathe and a mill, a milling machine. Yeah. And I don't know, I got all kinds of things going on, and I'm super busy. Not too busy to spend time with you, but I do happen to make myself pretty busy. I think it's pretty healthy. I've got my gym time, my school, my work, and then dancing. And so I've got plenty to do. It's a good life. How do you like this new background? All right. So I was thinking that, we've got a cool launch coming up. SpaceX is going to be launching on the 6th of October, and we're going to be spending some time together watching that launch happen. It got me to think a little bit about your interest in becoming an astronaut. And I picked up this book called Explorers by DK Books, and they talk about astronauts. There you go. That's an astronaut. Astronauts are explorers. And I figured I'd read the passage in this book that relates to explorers. It's called Into Outer Space. The idea of space travel has fired people's imaginations for centuries, but the reality remained a dream until rockets powerful enough to lift objects into space were invented. Such rockets, developed by both the United States and the Soviet Union in the mid-20th century, were based on German missiles developed during World War II. The space age began in earnest in 1957 when the Soviet Union launched Sputnik 1, the first artificial satellite to orbit Earth. Closely followed by the United States space satellite Explorer 1. The next major step came in 1961 when a man orbited Earth for the first time. Another milestone in space exploration came in 1969 when American astronauts from the Apollo 11 mission became the first humans to land on the moon. Today, exploration of the solar system involves sending robotic probes to investigate planets, asteroids, and comets, while Earthbound and orbiting telescopes explore the universe beyond. Wow. Pretty amazing stuff. So, yeah, all this happened in the late 50s. Right now it's 2018. So, I would say that's 40, 50, 60 years. We've only been doing hardcore space exploration in space with humans and spacecraft for 60 years. That's not a lot of time. That's only about 2 generations going on 3 generations of people. And, I think we're making steady progress. And I think that progress is speeding up. Thankfully, the economics are coming together with the technology, and also the interest level is expanding. There's a lot of hopeful ideas out there about what's possible when it comes to space exploration and space development. And I think right now the space industry is really what I'd call, from my standpoint, is in a renaissance period. That is a period where there's a lot of change happening, and there's a lot of ambition in the air, and that's great. It's great to be in an industry that is so hopeful about the future, where there are people who are willing to take courageous steps forward. And it's neat to be in that kind of industry. I have a feeling that that's happening in a lot of industries right now. I mean, the internet itself has just been blossoming in lots of areas related to electronics and digital equipment, and everything from artificial intelligence to audio visual technology to communication. There's a lot of potential out there. And I think what's cool, as a kid who's 14 years old, as you grew up, you will really be participating in all of this wonderful environment that's happening. These challenges that are being surmounted and surpassed on account of communication through the internet and developments in technology. It's really phenomenal. And I think the world is going to be completely different in about 20 years. There's going to be so much change. Now, we will have watched that change happen step by step. So that change won't necessarily appear to be a big deal 20 years from now. But I myself hope to be alive in 20 years. And I have a feeling that things are just going to be amazing. Now, I think our lives will be essentially the same, where we get up in the morning, we eat food, and we go to sleep at night. In 20 years, things will all be the same in that respect. But there are going to be different economics afoot. Certainly with artificial intelligence, that's going to be a serious game changer in our lives. And in fact, the nature of work is going to be completely changed. And the nature of school, that's going to be completely changed. There's going to be so much change. Economics are changing. I know Amazon has an interest in putting 3,000 stores around the United States that don't have cashiers, because they have this system where they'll charge your credit card just as you walk out with stuff. So imagine a period of time where there's no shoplifting, because it's not possible. And imagine, I don't know, there are some, it's just, I don't know, it's just going to be amazing. It's going to be totally amazing. And also, social media, that is really bursting at the seams. It's sort of galloping like gangbusters. Social media is changing the landscape. And who knows what the potential of social media is. Social media right now has serious effects on politics and just society at large. And just the changes in social media might change the way governments, the states, how states are run and how bureaucracies are run. It has a potential to change just the nature of business. I'm serious. Social media has that kind of potential. That's all organizations are. They're just how people organize themselves socially. And, social media has the power to change all that. Anyway, here I am on my soapbox again. I really get excited about these things, as you can tell. There's a lot of energy behind my speech when it relates to new technology because I'm a tech geek. Anyway, I want to wish you a wonderful day today. I want to wish you a wonderful weekend as we enjoy it together, and also the following week. I hope you are meeting your goals in school and at home, and that all is well with your pets and your parents. And I'll see you when I see you, okay, girl? I love you. Peace out.